In the shadowy corners of Victorian London, fear took on a name whispered in hushed tones, a name that struck terror into the heart of every woman who walked the streets of Whitechapel. This is the story of Jack the Ripper, one of history's most infamous and elusive serial killers. Whitechapel, in the late 1800s, was a district teeming with life, but drowning in poverty and despair. Overcrowded, unsanitary, and filled with crime, it was the perfect hunting ground for a predator who thrived in the chaos. It was here, amidst the narrow alleyways and dimly lit corners, that Jack the Ripper began his reign of terror. On the surface, Whitechapel was a bustling hub, but as night fell, it transformed into a place of shadows. Many women, struggling to survive, turned to prostitution. They became the most vulnerable targets, walking the streets alone, unaware of the danger lurking in the darkness. The terror began on August 31st, 1888. The body of Mary Ann Nichols, known to her friends as Polly, was discovered. Her throat had been slashed and her abdomen mutilated. The police were baffled. This was no ordinary crime. It was something far more sinister. As the police scrambled for answers, another body was discovered just a week later, Annie Chapman. The scene was even more horrific, with organs removed. The precision of the cut suggested the killer had anatomical knowledge, possibly a butcher or surgeon. The fear escalated when the media received a letter claiming to be from the killer, signed Jack the Ripper. Whether the letter was genuine or a hoax, it cemented the name that would haunt the streets of London forever. September 30th, 1888, became known as the double event. Two women, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, were murdered on the same night. Stride's murder seemed to be interrupted, but Eddowes suffered the full wrath of the Ripper's brutality. The city was in a state of panic. The press dubbed the killer Leather Apron, and citizens demanded action. The police increased patrols, questioned suspects, and even brought in bloodhounds. But Jack the Ripper was always one step ahead. The final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was found on November 9th, 1888. Her murder was the most gruesome of all, with her body mutilated beyond recognition. The brutality shocked even the most hardened detectives. And then, silence. No more murders, no more letters. Jack the Ripper vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared. Over the years, theories about Jack the Ripper's identity have abounded. Was he a doctor, a member of the royal family, or a local butcher? Some even suggest he was an immigrant, a theory fueled by the racial tensions of the time. But despite countless investigations, no one has ever been definitively identified as the Ripper. In modern times, advancements in forensic science have allowed new analyses of the case. DNA evidence, profiling, and other methods have been employed. But the mystery remains unsolved. The identity of Jack the Ripper is as elusive today as it was over a century ago. Today, Whitechapel is a far cry from the grimy, crime-ridden streets of the 19th century. Yet, the shadow of Jack the Ripper lingers. His story is retold in books, movies, and on walking tours, keeping his dark legacy alive. But why does this story continue to captivate us? Some say it's the mystery, the idea of a killer who evaded capture. Others are drawn to the macabre nature of the crimes or the fact that Jack the Ripper targeted the most vulnerable in society. His story is a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows and the impact of unchecked violence. The case of Jack the Ripper is a grim chapter in history, a tale of fear, mystery, and tragedy. While we may never know who he was, his story continues to haunt us. It's a reminder that the most chilling monsters aren't always those in our imagination, but those who walk among us. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and until next time, keep your eyes open and your doors locked.